fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
What's up, Salt Strong Nation? Joe Simons, like diamonds, in the car, in the Tahoe, heading down to the Keys. I got Tony in the back.
Yep.
Whoop. Gotta talk loud, guys. Luke on the side.
Oh, yeah.
Passenger side. And we're talking about fishing guides. You got us chatting here on the road about what to look for when you're hiring an inshore saltwater fishing guide, because that's what we're doing on our trip here this week. We're hiring Captain Mark Hollywood Johnson, Florida Keys Fun Fishing. And it also came up because we've seen a lot of questions in the community. You know, do you tip a fishing guide? Do you always tip a fishing guide? What do you look for? What are the kind of the signs of a good fishing guide versus a bad one? You know, what should you be looking for in terms of reviews and testimonials and social media? What do we look for in a fishing guide? And one thing that we're going to be doing here this year is having some Salt Strong certified fishing guides. It's a question that comes up a lot with our 20,000 members who might be traveling. Maybe it's a new area. Maybe they just have some friends in town and don't want to have the stress of having to go get bait and all the other stuff and put their friends on fish, and just want a great guide who's going to give them, one, a fun time, and two, be polite, and three, you know, put them on some fish. So first and foremost, I'll kick it off and kind of talk about the different types of guides, if you will. And the two really big buckets is, one, you got entertainers, and I think the majority of fishing guides really fall into that. You know, meaning for the most part, you're going out, you're paying for entertainment, right? You're going out to have fun, catch some fish. Maybe you're with your friends, maybe you're with coworkers, and you want to get some tight lines, maybe have a beer at the end, maybe bring back some fish. It's a little bit more about entertainment. On the other side is the how-to, like an actual fishing coach. I know a lot of guys like to think they are, but for the most part, you know, they're out there not necessarily teaching, but more putting people on fish. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and a lot of it's a blend too. But I mean, the reason why a lot of people go get fishing guides is for the entertainment, taking out business clients or something, and just to go and have fun on the water, catch some fish. And learning is the second most important.
And there's guys like Peter Deeks. I mean, he was charging, I think, $2,200 for a day just to like do 100% how-to. And so for the most part, Peter's trips are, let's say, $800, $1,000. He charges a lot because, you know, he's one of the best guides out there for putting people on potentially even state record fish. He's got multiple world records. But he would charge, he had some people say, hey, I just want to go out and learn everything that you do and just be focused 100% on teaching versus just catching. And he was charging people, I think it was $2,200 for the day. And he's like, man, if someone does that with me, they will know enough to like be pretty confident they can go enter a tournament the next week and compete. Not necessarily win, but they're going to have some legit skills to go out there and catch fish. And like you said, Luke, there's some hybrids out there as well that are doing a little bit of both. You know, they're talking through what they're doing, why they're picking certain areas as well. And I've seen both. You know, we've been on the boat with quite a few guides, some who are kind of silent and very introverted and just all about getting on the fish, and some who are kind of talking through the whole process.
Because the only way to do the education is to really slow down, and
Yes.
It's a 99% certainty that you're going to catch fewer fish when you slow down to teach all the nuances on decision making and all that. So that's why it's hard. It's really hard to do both. It needs to be one or the other in most cases.
Which is why in our videos, when we're doing how-to tips, right, you have to slow down and talk about the rigging and really walk someone through step by step versus going out there and say, hey, we're going to catch as many fish as we can in a short amount of time. What do you think, Tony? What was the last charter you had?
So I've never hired a charter. I know a lot of guys that do charter, and you know, I think a lot depends too on you as the client. Like, what do you want? when you go out with a guide, do you want to learn? Do you want to just go out and catch fish? And you have to let them know. And when you're picking a guide, social media is huge right now just to, figure out who you want to go out with. If you, see a guide on social media, they've only posted a couple pictures and they only have, 100 followers, you might want to, search around a little bit and see who has that larger following, who has a better reputation, because social media definitely helps with that when you're trying to find a guide. But once you do find a guide, you have to think about what you want as a client. Like, do you want fish to take home for dinner? Do you want to learn how to catch a certain species of fish, or do you just want to go out there and have fun?
Yep, love it. And a tip I will give, and some people might not like what I'm about to say, but I would only hire a guide who's doing it full time. That's just me. And meaning there's some people out there's quite a few people who have a captain's license and they do it on the weekends. Some of them are great anglers, but end of the day, I'm going to hire someone who's doing it day in and day out. They're going to have a massive advantage of being on the water, 5 to 7 days a week versus 2. And ultimately, I want someone who's supporting their family, with full-time guiding. I want to support them as well. So I know a lot of people who have started off doing, weekends. Maybe they're a firefighter or something, and they're, guiding here and there. I think that's great. I'm proud of them, but at the same point, I want to support people who are doing this full time, just because I know how much goes into it. I mean, being a full-time guide, they're waking up, especially if they're having a trailer of the boat, which a majority of them are. They're waking up 4:35 in the morning, getting there, going out and getting bait, and then coming back and meeting their customers at the dock or marina or wherever it might be, or the boat ramp. And then all of a sudden, it's 4:30 by the time they're dropping people off. Then they're having to get the boat back on, wash it, potentially clean fish. By the time they get home, to sit down and have dinner, it's 9 o'clock. It's a long, long day out in the sun. It is an absolute grind. And I like to reward people who are basically burn all the bridges behind them or doing it full time.
Yeah, just being on the water every day is a big advantage. And so as far as maximizing your fish catching, the full-time guides are statistically going to be better off getting on fish, just because they've literally been on the water multiple days the prior week. That's a huge deal.
Yep. One other one that I've seen that a lot of guides, if you're listening to this, you can learn from, is have a niche, like have a specialty. I think one of the worst things a full-time fishing guide, charter captain can do is say, I can catch anything, offshore, inshore, because here's what happens inside of our club, and even just friends via Facebook who know that we're the co-founders of Saltwater, will say, hey, I'm looking for a charter, in Fort Myers or down in Marco, wherever it is, and we're really looking to catch this. Like I had one recently looking to catch hogfish, and I know, hey, here's a person who literally is probably one of the best hogfish captains out there. So guess what? I refer them there. I had someone over last year. All they wanted to do, they had some high-end customers in town, and they want to go out and catch tarpon in St. Pete. So guess what? I'm going to put them with someone who I know is an expert at catching tarpon in St. Pete versus the jack of all trades. I think the jack of all trades used to work back in the day, but now with everything we have in life is leaning towards a specialist, right? Whether it's a doctor, whether you're looking at TV, right? We used to have 15 channels growing up as kids. Now we have 1,500, and they're all specialized based on what you are interested in. And I'm willing to bet that the guys who probably do the best and have their calendars booked out the furthest are somewhat of a specialist versus a jack of all trades that can do anything, any given time, etc. So I would look for that. I would look for a guide and know what you want, right? If you're down in South Florida at a certain time of year, do a little research yourself and know that, hey, this is going to be a great time to catch these type of fish. You can ask questions and say, hey, I'm looking for a captain to get me on some really big snook or really big redfish, or I really want to catch big speckled trout in Indian River, whatever it might be. That makes it so much easier to both find referrals and to find the person you're looking for online. Any thoughts from you, Peanut Gallery?
Yeah, I personally I really like YouTube and videos just to get a better gauge of the captain's personality. You know, you can get a much better gauge on video than you can picture. And so I personally go for, if I'm going to a new area and I want to find a captain that, I personally like the education side. I just love learning different types of fisheries. And so I would gravitate towards some actual video footage of that captain doing some teaching, showing a proficiency in what I'm looking for. And so in my case, I just like the education side more than just catching a bunch of fish. So that's my general checkbox, if you will.
Yeah. And just seeing their personality to make sure they're a nice person. Let's face it, you're going to be stuck on the boat with this person for 6 to 8 hours, depending on what kind of charter you have, and you want to make sure it's a good person. If you're a fishing captain, doesn't mean you have to be a YouTuber. That's not what Luke's saying, but at least have some videos out there, because I do the same thing. I know other people are doing the same thing, is they go out there on Instagram and they go out there on YouTube and they search that captain's name to see what's out there, just to get an idea of what kind of person they're going to be on the boat with for the whole day. Because there are some captains who are amazing at catching fish, and yet they're miserable to be around. They're cursing, not very family friendly. This is a small group, so I don't think this is the majority, but there's some out there that I would not want my family or my friends fishing with. So I think that's a great tip for both the consumer and for you fishing captains, is put a couple videos out there just so people can find you and kind of get an idea of what kind of fisherman you are, what kind of person you are to be around, and even just to get to see the boat. I know that's a question that comes up, hey, what kind of boat is it? Is it, if we're going offshore, is it going to have a bathroom? I know that's something my wife is, interested in. They want to know what kind of storage, if they have a lot of stuff for a bunch of kids. Is it kid friendly? Are you going to have drinks available? I personally would say, if you're a fishing captain, charge a little bit more. Most people, especially if they're traveling on vacation, they would gladly pay a little bit more for you to have a cooler stocked full of drinks and possibly even some lunch for them. I know when I was taking my customers out back in my previous life, I would pay a whole lot more to have like the red carpet laid out, where there were some captains out there and some charter companies that they, a couple days before would ask, what kind of sandwiches do we want? Do we want certain types of beers, or even, champagne or whatever it is? And they would have all that stuff ready, where all we had to do was just show up. It made it so easy, and it took all the pressure off of having to go to Publix or all the other stuff you have to do. I think, I don't see many people doing that, right? They're like, oh, I want to be the low cost guy or gal. I want to only charge $400 or $500 and have everyone bring their own stuff. I'd rather pay $600 or $700. I'd rather pay $800 and have everything there for me, where all I have to do is show up and catch a ton of fish. What do you guys think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's some, like, you have your charter captains who do like individual trips. Then I've been on quite a few party boats, for example. Like, some of them, they'll serve food throughout the day. You'll get breakfast, and then you'll get lunch. And then the other ones, you have to bring everything you want to eat and drink. And to me, I'd rather pay more for not having to have to worry about anything when I get out there. Just bring yourself some sunscreen and the right shoes too. You don't want to go on a captain's $80,000 boat with black shoes and scuff it up. So make sure you
Yes.
make sure you know what to bring with you when you do have to bring stuff.
Yes.
Well, I'll be the oddball on this one as far as the all-inclusive. Like, I don't know, I'm I guess more on the thrifty side, but I actually, as long as it's clear what's included and what's not included, I have no problem bringing my own cooler. I actually kind of prefer it that way. I bring the food that I know I like, versus if you don't know exactly what's going to be on there, right? Like if it's totally up to the captain. Some people have like food allergies and stuff. There's I actually prefer just bringing the stuff. It just needs to be clear. It needs to be exactly clear what's included, what's not included, and maybe just have the option where, okay, the captain will bring all the, X amount of sandwiches, this type of sandwiches, all that kind of stuff. But I personally have no problem bringing my own stuff. And kind of what Joe put on before, where you have the niche. My favorite way to do it, just to have a good time and learn something really cool, is I like to find the guide that I trust, right? Which I use those videos. And then instead of trying to target, like trying to force a certain species to be caught, it's really about, hey, I'm free this day, like, and based on the conditions, if you're going to be fishing by yourself, like, what would you go after? Like, what's like the unique thing that's biting right now? Because sometimes it's not what I actually want to target. Like, I went with Captain Jeff Vickers a little while back, and he's really a specialist in like snook and tarpon, but he's doing a lot of triple tail stuff too, and the conditions were really good that day for triple tail, and I had an absolute blast. We caught 4 triple tail. I learned a strategy I never even thought of before, and it was a blast. So I think just the long story short is, don't try to force a certain species. It's cool to start that way, but when you book a trip 2, 3, 4 weeks or more in advance, you know, sometimes the weather isn't going to cooperate, and instead of trying to force it, just kind of go with the flow and go with whatever the weather and conditions make possible.
Yeah, Deb, I agree with most of what you said. The one part about clear, very, very clear expectations is critical. And if you're looking at a guide that doesn't have a website, don't use them. And guys, if you don't have a website by now, we're in 2021, you need to have one. And it needs to be very, very clear on what the people do need to bring or don't need to bring, right? If you are going to have a cooler loaded with, even if it's just the water part of it, take the guys like Luke who really just are cheap and want a peanut butter and jelly. Just say, hey, you know what? Don't bring water, because that all that stuff adds up in terms of weight. And if people start bringing coolers when you already have a monster Yeti loaded, just make it easy on everyone for the expectation side of things. So I do agree with that. And I also agree in terms of the niche. I don't mean you can only focus on one fish, but even like with Jeff, because I follow Jeff on Instagram. That dude catches a lot of different fish, and during that season, he's posting triple tail left and right. So, like, he's always saying, hey, here's what I'm doing right then and there. But Luke's final point is, yeah, you got to trust the guide. Like, find someone that is going to be knowledgeable in that area, and at the end of the day, you're going to have to trust them that if they're on the water 5 days a week, they know what's biting, they know what the best chance is, and be prepared to have to pivot sometimes, especially with weather, right? I mean, if you are going a little bit near shore or offshore, there might be times where you got to completely change up things just based on weather. So be prepared to be flexible. One other thing that I would bring up to the guide, if you want to learn, if your goal is to get how-to, like education, ask them what their policy is on them fishing. Now, some people are going to disagree and say a guide should never be fishing while his clients are. I've had some of my biggest aha moments with a fishing guide and letting them, like asking them to fish with me so you can watch them. Even if they're out fishing you can learn so much on how they're retrieving, how they're casting, right? I mean,
100%.
That's like
100%.
One of the best ways to learn. I know that book I read, Larry, what's his last name, with the G in Texas. You know, he mentioned that. He's like, I would hire guides just to watch them. He's like, I would say I don't want to hire you unless you're going to fish with me, and I want to see exactly how you're fishing these areas. So ask that question up front if they don't mind fishing. I think that's one of the best ways to learn. Now, if you're trying to catch a lot of fish, just know that they're going to be out fishing you, and if your buddies are into more fishing, they're going to make you look bad and possibly get all the good bites and probably take the front of the boat. They're going to be using the trolling motor or push pulling you, depending on what kind of fishing you're doing. So just be prepared that they might outfish the heck out of you. But for a learning lesson, that is one of the best ways to learn in a short amount of time.
100%.
Yep. Tony, talk about tips. I know that's come up quite a bit in Facebook, and obviously the captains are quick to chime in. The question being, is it expected that you always tip a fishing guide even if you don't catch fish? What do you guys think?
Yeah, so that's a tough one. Fishing guides, they are technically in the service industry, I guess you can call it. They're providing a service, and if they meet or exceed your expectations, you should definitely throw them some extra cash for the trip. I mean, the standard is about 20%, I think, based on the trip. And there's a lot of debate out there whether it's, the tips are expected or should you tip based on your experience. And I think a lot of people just don't realize where all the money goes when you do pay for a charter. A lot of people ask, okay, well, I'm paying $600 or $700 for this trip. Where's all that money going? and they don't realize all the wear and tear that goes on the boats. The equipment, gas, fuel, maintenance, all that. And also these guys, they pay their own taxes. They're independent contractors. They have to pay for taxes. They have to pay for, your boat payments, all that stuff to get you guys out on the water. So all that money, by the end of the trip, most of it's pretty much gone. And they're relying heavily on tips. Party boats, those guys, the deckhands, they only get paid in tips. They don't have a wage. So depending on your experience out there, if you're having a good time, definitely tip the mates, tip your captain. If they fillet your fish for you, throw them some extra cash. It definitely helps them out, especially if they're trying to feed their families.
Yep. Yeah, I had an experience once down in the Bahamas, and we really wanted to catch bonefish, and we did. I think we caught 2, but then that was a long day, and normally I was a little bit let down because I thought we were going to get more, and so did the guy Brian that I was with. But all of a sudden the guy, he knew it was just blazing hot and we were kind of dying, and he's like, you know what, I want to show you guys this really cool little hidden, it was almost like a little cavern there in the Bahamas that only the locals really knew about. And he took us out there and anchored up, and all of a sudden brought out some mask and snorkels, and we all just jump out, and it felt so good. And we're going out behind this little hidden cove, and it's just crystal clear water, and it was like I would have paid for that by itself. It would have been its own excursion. And we ended up hooking this guy up big time. It was the best way possible to end a pretty slow day. And I think for you fishing guides, that means that's an entertainment part of things, right? Be adaptable and kind of have a plan B. I know Captain Hollywood, who we're fishing with here, it's a reason that he's got a fleet of boats now. He's got, I think, 4 or 5 boats in his fleet, and it's because he focuses on the family. They always 100% of the time have masks and snorkels and fins in there, just if it's a slow day, or if the kids are getting anxious and not catching fish. Hey, let's just go up in this little reef real quick and let everyone kind of swim around and have some fun. Because for a tourist, you're going to have to pay a couple $100 for that anyways. And I think that is so smart, and it's a great way to get that big tip and still put a smile on someone's face and create an experience, not always just around catching a fish. Because let's face it, there are going to be days where it's just a grind. No matter how much time you spend on the water, there are just times when the fish do not want to cooperate. So I would say, as a fishing guide, always have a plan B, if you will, and as a consumer, always be prepared to reward that person. I mean, they're out there, and it's stressful, right? I mean, put yourselves in their shoes. They're, some of them 320 days a year are having to put people on fish, even when things aren't lining up the way they want, weather and tide-wise, and it's stress on them to make sure they're creating a good time for you. So reward them. They have it tough. I mean, it's not just all catching fish and having fun out on the boat every day. It is an absolute grind, as Tony said.
Yeah, I agree, I focus on the education side when I go. So even on a slow day, in many cases, the slow days are where you learn the most, because the fish aren't biting. They're not biting everything that moves, and those are the days that you have to make the extra little tweaks, the extra little effort to make things happen and to get things turned around. So I appreciate the tough days, and particularly appreciate when you're with a guide on those tough days, because you can see the tweaks and changes that they're making to fix a slow bite. In most cases, it does happen, and that'll be some of the best lessons you could possibly learn. The days I generally learn the least are when the fish are just super aggressive and will just bite anything, because it's just a matter of just being able to cast a lure in their general vicinity. You're going to get a strike. So I appreciate the tough days, and I appreciate more how the guides respond to it. Most of them, almost all of them that I've been with, you can see that they're going the extra, put in the extra effort. They'll actually stay longer in most cases because they really want to make sure that that the customer's been happy. So expect the tough days. They do happen, and they're uncontrollable. But those are the best days to actually learn some extremely valuable lessons.
Yep. And I would say always ask up front, especially, during some of the crazy summer months when you got hurricanes in Florida and all kinds of things going on, really not just Florida, Texas, Louisiana, everywhere. Ask them what their policy is if the trip does get canceled, or if you can only go out for an hour or so and all of a sudden you're having to head back in. I have seen some people who have been burned because they didn't ask that and didn't really know the policy up front, and all of a sudden they're out for 30, 40 minutes and a monster lightning storm comes and the guy drops them off and is like, hey, I kind of want all my money. And like, well, we didn't even fish. And he's like, well, that's your fault. And shame on the guide. I don't think that's right for the guide. But then again, you need to have rules. If that is the guide's rule and you know it up front, then shame on you. But make sure you have expectations on what happens if the trip gets canceled, or worst case, if you do go out 6-8 hours and it's just the worst day ever, boat breaks down and you don't catch any fish. I think it's worth, just like any kind of relationship or any kind of service, is having clear expectation of who's doing what and what happens if. So that's all I really got. Hopefully that's helpful. We're going to continue to kind of build out a site, probably publicly, since we have obviously our public side and we have the insider side. We get questions from both the public and our insider members on who are the best guides, and so we're going to kind of build up a Salt Strong certified fishing guides all over, from Texas up to probably Virginia. So if you think that you could be a guide that we would like to list, let us know. Reach out to us at fish@saltstrong.com. Tell us a little bit about yourself. We already have a pretty good list of some guides that we respect. And to us, it's going to be someone who is family friendly, who's not out there cursing like a sailor, and is just helpful and considerate, and at the end of the day, loves to educate and loves just to create amazing memories and to put people on fish and in a positive way and a fun way. So, guys, anything else from Luke?
That
John?
covers it.
No, that's all I got.
Otherwise, we'll be in the Keys in the next few hours, and stay tuned for some fishing reports there with Captain Hollywood. If you are down there, he is our favorite. He's someone we obviously have to pay for this ourselves, and we keep hiring Captain Mark Hollywood because he's been so good to us down there and always goes out of his way to create some awesome memories for us, and his entire team does. It's not just him. So if you ever reach out at Florida Keys Fun Fishing, you can't get him. All of his guys, every one of his guys are A+. They're amazing, and we fish with a couple of them and have a blast with all of them. So hope that helps. Hope you guys have an awesome week. And if you're not an insider member yet, come and join us. We would love to have you. Whoa, I got this new Tahoe, and you got to turn on the turn signal, otherwise it starts beeping at you. Safety first. But yeah, come join us in the Insider Club. A lot of new stuff happening here in 2021 for our members on all three fronts: on the water lessons, the smart fishing game plans, the discounts, all kinds of new tackle. You guys hopefully saw the power prawns that sold out the first round in like 6 hours. Finally starting to get some reels in, some rods coming in here very soon with TFO and Bull Bay, some of our favorite rods coming in. We'll have a whole lot of new stuff here this spring and summer, even some new chum that we are working on. I'm pumped for you guys to see that. And then, of course, the community now getting close to 20,000 strong. And it is just, man, it's growing like crazy and just getting better and better every single day. New fishing reports all over, from Texas to Florida to Virginia and everywhere in between, going up every 4 to 5 minutes now. Yes, 4 to 5, not 45. Every 4 to 5 minutes there's new posts going up in that private community that we've built. And it is all Facebook. It is not anything to do with social media. It's a private community.saltstrong.com. So insiders who are listening, we appreciate you big time. You're the foundation of this company and this family. And we are just so blessed to have all of you amazing people, very positive, helpful anglers helping anglers. Otherwise, we'll talk to you guys on the next podcast. We out. Peace.
See ya.
Later.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul. It was past